I'm at the children's hospital. The doctor looks at me and he looks at my mom, starts talking to her. And I say, like, she doesn't speak English. So, let me know and I'll translate. And he's like, okay, great. Well, tell your mom that if you keep going like this, I don't give you 2 weeks because you're dropping weight so fast. Your lab work is ridiculous. So either you guys get the help you need or she needs to start like embracing the fact that her daughter's going to die.
In 2 weeks?
Yeah. Like he gave me a timeline. I'm like, how do you know? But it wasn't even about that. In my head, I'm like, of course I'm not going to tell my mom that. Are you kidding me? Right?
Because you're the translator now,
right? Of course. So then that moment when I look at her, and he was kind of like tough love, and maybe he read me really well, but he was tough love with me.
Like,
and I looked at her and I'm like, and she's like, what did he say? And he's like, I said to her, he said he's going to give you the help I need and everything's going to be okay. Right? And then my mom's like, oh, okay, good. Thank you. And the doctor's like, what? The doctor's like, thank you. Anyway, I was like, look, doctor, of course I'm not going to translate, but I'm going to get the help, right?
Yeah.
Almost done with the story.
And how old are you now? 13, 14?
13 and a half, turning 14 soon,
okay.
Yeah. So now they take me to a psychiatrist's office, and that was like I saw the light moment. I just remember sitting exactly like that with a psychiatrist, and the psychiatrist is looking at me, and it was a woman, and it just felt cold. And, she's asking me questions. And I had this moment that I'm like, why am I going to talk about sitting in shit? Like, I'm sitting in shit. You want me to talk about sitting in shit? How about I just get myself out of the shit, clean myself up, and then maybe, just maybe after I can reflect on like why I did this. But talking about why and talking about how it started, and I just needed to get out. I needed to get out of it. Yeah. And that was the moment that I realized, my God, I let a single human completely manipulate me into almost taking away the one thing you gave me, which is life. Mm-hmm. Like, how am I going to let a human be bigger, a human's opinion of me be bigger than God's plan for me?
Yep.
So that was literally the moment that I'm looking at the psychiatrist, and I just had this, like, I literally think that's when my faith started.
And that's a big realization for a 14-year-old or an almost 14-year-old.
Right?
Think about that.
No, God was on my side, girl.
Right?
Yeah, 100%. Because it was so clear. And then I remember standing up and I said, I have nothing but respect for you, but I actually know what to do. And the psychiatrist was like, you have a mental disorder. You don't know what to do. And I said,
oh, I love you.
I said, you're not going to watch me, but I'm going to do this. I know exactly what to do. Right? So I got up.
That is very strong for a 14-year-old.
I know, right? So I got up and I went back to the boarding school. I took my mom, and the first thing I did was eat a bunch of carbs. Right?
Good,
like I just
good for you.
I got my little toast, which was a lot for me. I got my little toast and I got my banana, and I'm like, I know exactly what to do. I'm going to slowly gain weight. I'm going to slowly get healthy. I'm going to get my period again because it had been a year since I hadn't, right? And I just started, I think that was the first realization of exactly what you said. Number one, what people think about you or say about you is 100% a reflection of them. Mm-hmm. Most of the time, right? You have to have your circle of people that you trust, that when they're telling you the truth, that you believe them.
Yes.
But I think it's that discernment of like coming to, who am I, right? Who am I going to let influence me? What's important to me? And it's so cliche, right? It's so cliche. Like now I'm talking to you, and it's so cliche to be like, no, you have to remember who you are, and you can't worry about what people say, blah, 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 blah. But and I tend to move away so much from like, oh, it's about me, and put your mask first. I know there's those instances that you have to focus on you first, that you have 100%. But for me, I check my ego all the time, and I'm so much about service. I can't serve my family. I can't serve my friends if I'm not my best.
Yep.
I can't do what I love if I'm not my best, right? And with dance is how I'm able to influence people, right? Which is so crazy. Like doctors do that, right?
Yeah.
Like with dance, with what I love, I'm able to maybe inspire someone. And I can't do that if I'm not my best. I can't do that if I'm not healthy. And I certainly can't do that if I'm not dead.
Welcome to the Geena The Latina Show. I am Geena. Make sure you follow us on Instagram and TikTok at the Geena The Latina Show. This next episode is about a topic that a lot of people go through. A lot of people don't talk about this. And I think it's so important for us to talk about it. It's something that I went through. And our next guest, Ferly Prado, she went through it too, but she also rose up on the other side. So today's episode, I'm really excited about because I've been wanting to do an episode about this forever, but I thought I wanted to bring in the right person to talk about this. All right. So that brings me to our next guest, Ferly Prado. Welcome.
Thank you.
Before we get in, we're going to talk about eating disorders, body image, this thing that women we have been tasked with for some reason. But Ferly, okay, so Ferly has danced you're a professional dancer, phenomenal. Beyonce, Britney Spears, Justin Timberlake, Jennifer Lopez, Katy Perry, Mariah, Carey, Cher. I mean, the list goes on and on and on. Like your resume is insane.
Thank you.
Like you've danced for them, you've been in like shows, movies. I mean, is there something you haven't done yet that you want to do still?
I'm so ambitious. I always want more.
Yeah.
You know, but I'm very content. I'm very blessed.
You know what's funny is I remember like, so the Beyonce fans are crazy, right?
Yeah.
They're like, right? And so in a good
crazy,
way, in a good
correct?
crazy. I know they make me crazy because someone figured out like that I knew you on social media, like
Really?
personally, like someone from the Beehive, and they were like all up like, oh my God, you know her? Like, and you're Beyonce's, like they know all the Beyonce's dancers,
Yes.
right? And you went on what tour with her?
The Formation.
The Formation tour. Oh, yeah. How was that?
It was amazing.
Amazing,
It was amazing.
right?
I mean, like you said, the fans, it's unbelievable the energy you get on stage, you know? And obviously dancing for her.
Mm-hmm.
You carry such a pride and such a sense of respect for what you do, you know? Yeah, I mean, my time on stage on that tour is unforgettable.
Yeah. And so that kind of brings me to the whole dance. Like people don't realize so I'm not a dancer, but I've had a lot of friends that are dancers. Like you, Crystal, like other people. Yeah, we love Crystal.
Yes.
But just being in the industry, like people don't realize how much work you guys put into your craft.
Yes.
And I feel like you guys are highly underpaid.
I love you. I love this podcast.
Right? Like because
Yes.
I've been on, like I used to go on tour with Rihanna and like all these other people, and I've seen how much work the backup dancers or dance, I don't want to call it backup.
Yeah,
is it considered
No,
backup
it
dancers?
is.
Backup dancers put, and I'm like, oh my God, like you guys, and I think this will lead into what we're going to talk about because all of this like hours and hours and hours of work, right?
The expectation is high, but I'm gonna say it, the appreciation is low.
The pay.
Right? Yeah, the pay is low.
Yeah. So you have to really
some
love
artists are better than others, though. I
Yeah.
do gotta say, like some actually do show you appreciation, and it's not just financial, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's when you go on tour, for instance, you're giving your life away, literally, right? So when I hear like, oh, Ferly, you're so lucky. First of all, there's no luck. You put the work in, right? But second of all, it's a trade-off because you're literally giving your life away. You don't know where you're gonna sleep. You don't know what you're gonna eat. You don't know how you're getting from point A to point B. How am I traveling? Am I in the back of the bus? You know? So like all of those things. And I've been on tours where they take care of you so well and you feel so appreciated. And I've been on tours that you're literally traveling on Greyhounds for hours and hours and expected to go from stage to stage, not even with a shower, like you shower at the venue, right? And then to your point,
and
you know,
look great and do phenomenal on stage.
Right.
But hurry up and get ready in the Greyhound bathroom. Right?
100%.
And you're not, I'm not.
It's a reality.
And me and Ferly haven't talked, so I'm not like putting her, like other dancers have told me these things. It's crazy.
Yeah,
How you guys are they should do like a
know.
behind the scenes type deal.
That would be an amazing show, right?
Yeah.
Like to show but that's the thing. You sign NDA, so you can't really talk about it. So like the details can't. Oh, sorry.
That's it.
The details can't really be talked about. You can only talk generally, you know?
Yeah.
So again, some artists, amazing to work for, you know? I'll give one example, Tina Turner. So dancers are taught that there's a pyramid, right? That the artist is on top, and then it's Camp A, which is like the manager, the assistant, like whoever is really close to the artist. Then it's the musical director, then it's the musicians, and then it's the dancers and crew at the bottom, right? With Tina, there was no pyramid. With Tina, absolutely, she was the leader. There's a difference between boss and leader, right? She was absolutely the leader, and then everyone else. So the person that put that nail down on the stage was just as important as a dancer, which was just as important as the musical director, which was just as important as the drummer. Everyone felt seen. Everyone felt respected. So everyone wanted to come to work. So much so that anytime I go on any other job and we're like, oh my God, were you on the Tina Turner? Yeah, were you on the... Everyone misses it, you know, because it was just so... As artists, number one, it's not even paid, to be honest. It's being appreciated and being seen.
Yeah.
Because everything we do is emotional. Everything we do is about service, you know? So to feel seen is number one. It's not even the pay.
Yeah.
But pay would be nice.
But we love Tina Turner then.
We love
How
Tina.
many tours have you gone on? Do you even know at this point?
I've done a lot. Well, so tours, I think 5 at this point.
Uh-huh.
Music videos, a lot of them. TV shows, a lot of
Love
them, which
them.
is really fun.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's probably one of my favorites. TV
Yeah.
shows.
Okay. So so that's present, right? She's
Okay,
done
yeah.
all this. So you would never think
Let's
that
get to
you
the nitty gritty.
just like even knowing you, I didn't know you went through this until you like did a social media post probably like this year. I think I saw
Yeah.
it, right? About eating disorders
Yeah.
and and you were very open about it,
Mhm.
right? So let's take it back to because I believe that eating disorders don't happen overnight. They start from something, right? So let's take us back to your first early. Let's go
Yeah.
through like early dancing and how it all started.
Right. So I was born and raised in Brazil. My mom had an academy in Brazil, still does, and was never forced to dance. But at 3 years old, I was put in dance. And again, as we were growing up, she's like, if you don't want it, you don't have to, right? But I have 2 sisters. They were both dancing. One of them was teaching at that point. So I'm like, well, the girls are doing it. Let me do it too, right? And there was always a sense of my mom wanted us to thrive in dance and my dad wanted us to thrive in school. So there was always like a good pressure, but pressure on both sides. And I wasn't really in love with dance at that point. My sister was the middle one. Her name is Fernanda. She ended up wanting to move to the United States. You know, we were at we're at New York City. She saw Lincoln Center. She looked at my dad. She's like, I would love to dance here one day.
Mhm.
And my dad wanted us to move to the United States.
Okay.
Even if it was just us kids. He didn't know how it was going to happen, but he wanted. So he made it happen. He found a boarding school for her. She went. She was 13 years old. She went alone. And that whole year, I just, honest to God, I just missed her. You know,
Yeah,
and
you
I looked
just
at my parents. I was like, I have no interest in ballet, but I just want to be with her, right? Worked really hard that year. Ended up making it. And then to make a long story short, we're there. And in 6 months, I started developing this eating disorder.
And so how old are you right now at
I'm
that time?
12 and a half, turning 13.
So you're 12 and a half.
Yeah.
You're in the US without your parents.
I'm in the US.
At dance
Exactly.
school.
Exactly.
Okay. And so did you know you were developing an eating disorder or how, like
No,
looking
so
back
how it
now?
started is the director just could not stand. She had personal reasons. She could not stand tall girls. And so I wasn't the only one, right?
Yeah.
So I was already really tall for my age. And so she would call me in her office and she didn't really speak English. So she had a translator and the translator was an angel. So I'm sure she translated in the nicest way possible, right?
Oh, damn.
But she would call me and say, you're too tall. You will never become a dancer. Nobody wants a giant on stage.
Oh my
You're
God.
not talented. You should go back to Brazil. And then, so she would call me probably once a week. And then because of that, I started getting depressed and I started eating.
So she would just call you just to tell, like she was trying to get you kicked out of the
Yeah,
school
I would
or
get a
something?
notice on my dorm saying the director wants to see you.
And so did you feel looking back that she was just trying to like get you out of the school pretty much? Or like
So
trying to get you to like quit kind of?
yeah,
Okay,
yeah,
okay.
because her ex-husband married a tall ballerina. That's the
Oh,
gist of it.
That's so crazy.
Yeah, she was the director of the school in DC. It's called Kirov.
Yeah.
It used to be called Kirov. And then the company, the professional company was in Moscow.
Mhm.
So he was a director there. She was the director of the school and he married a tall ballerina. Long story short, she just persecuted. She just like went after the tall girls.
Oh my.
And then anyway, so
real quick, I
Yeah.
want to take a minute to point this out is that when people have problems, you don't realize usually it has everything to do with them and nothing to do with you.
and that's a truth that as soon as you accept and the more you remember daily, the better you can live your life.
Yes,
Because
right?
it's never
It's
never about you.
ever.
I know.
So remember next time like someone says kind of hurtful or does something, it's 100% I'm going to say it's not about you. It's about them.
100%.
Okay, so we'll keep going now.
So yeah, and then I started like eating because that was my comfort, right? And then so now the comments were like, now you're too tall, now you're too fat. So
Oh my God.
6 months into
Again,
it,
12 and a half years
12
old?
and a half years old.
That
So
is
now at this
crazy.
point, I'm turning 13. I go to Brazil. I go to see my parents. And I tell my mom I want to see a nutritionist. And she's like, oh, that's amazing. I was like, I just want to make sure I have the energy for dance class. Can I curse?
You didn't tell her the real truth. Yeah, you can curse. This is online.
It
You
was
can say
bullshit,
yeah,
right?
it was bullshit.
So yeah. So I go to nutritionist and whatever plan they gave me, I cut it in half on my own. Nobody knew. So 6 months later, I'm down to 89 pounds
At 13 years
and
old.
I'm already 5'8".
And so what should you have weighed at that, just to give people perspective, you think?
I should have weighed like 115,
Oh,
120.
wow. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
So you're 25 pounds underweight at least, right? Around
yeah,
that,
yeah, yeah,
If
yeah.
if I did the math right. Okay.
Yeah, yeah. And so, and you know, at that age and all of that. So then obviously stopped having my periods. My parents didn't know, I had no idea. When they finally came to see me a year later, I was just bones. The thing about it is that, so I was diagnosed with anorexia nervosa, which is a mental disorder, right? So you don't see the reality. You like, for me, thinking back, 13 years old, 14 years old, looking in the mirror, I looked like this. I looked normal,
Yeah.
right?
You
But
look phenomenal, by the
thank
way.
you, thank you, thank you.
Yeah.
No, but my point is, I didn't see bones sticking out.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
What I
You
do
just look
remember is
normal.
being in class blacking out. Like I'm in the ballet bar, like doing the exercise, and I do remember holding on and just blacking out for a second, and then coming to. I do remember that.
And that was just from not eating.
From not eating.
From being
100%. And so the nurses started calling me on a weekly basis. They're like, we're worried about you. And I thought, this is what's so sick about this business, that, you know, and this is like just young. I wasn't even working, obviously. But, you know, you always think someone is after you. So it's like, oh, is the nurse friends with this girl who wants to take my part in the recital? Like, you always think that.
Yeah,
There's some type of, you
Like-
know, what's it called? What's it called in English when there's like a backstory or like a...
ulterior motive?
ulterior motive,
Yeah.
And so I wasn't believing. I'm like, oh my God, I'm probably fat, and they want me fatter because they want me out of here. So that's what my mind was
so
going.
you think they're telling you to eat to
So then I'm
like,
cutting it even more.
Yeah.
Like I'm eating even less. So anyway, long story short, they pull me out of the recital and they take me to the children's hospital.
Oh, wow.
At this point, my mom is there, and my mom is in tears. She speaks no English. She's like, what is happening? And
they have no clue because they haven't even been here. They think they sent their
They have
daughters
no
to this
idea.
amazing dance school.
And my parents were, at that point, they had lost everything. So for them to financially keep us there was a miracle. So remember IDT cards, the international calling cards that you like,
Yeah.
So we literally had 1 minute to catch up with them, right? So I'm not going to tell them, oh, by the way, my sister's vomiting every day and I'm not eating. You know, of course.
So your sister had an eating disorder.
My sister was bulimic, yeah.
Was that because the lady was telling her to, or just the pressures of the dance?
The pressures of the dance.
Yeah,
When you're
yeah.
a ballet dancer, you got to fit a mold.
I've heard.
You got to fit a mold,
I've
you know,
heard,
and so the physique is number one, the technique's number two. So my mom sees me, and now we're at the hospital. She's like, what is going on? I had no idea. I was lucky that the only teacher there that was American was my dance teacher, and she kind of became a mama bear to me. So she called my dad, who wasn't there at that point, called my dad. It's like, this is the plan, right? We're going to get them out of here. They're very talented. They just need to get out of here. This is not the place for them. You know, she's talking specifically about me because she's my teacher. She's like, Ferly has a very, very, very strong mind. Fortunately or unfortunately, whatever she puts her head into, she's going to do it.
Yeah.
So we just need to get her the help to see the light, right? So I'm at the children's hospital. The doctor looks at me and he looks at my mom, starts talking to her, and I say, like, she doesn't speak English, so let me know and I'll translate. And he's like, okay, great. Well, tell your mom that if you keep going like this, I don't give you 2 weeks because you're dropping weight so fast. Your lab work is ridiculous. So either you guys get the help you need, or she needs to start like embracing the fact that her daughter's gonna die
In 2 weeks.
Yeah. Like he gave me a timeline. I'm like, how do you know? But it wasn't even about that. In my head, I'm like, of course I'm not gonna tell my mom that. Are you kidding me? Right?
Because you're the translator now,
of
right?
Of course. So then that moment when I look at her, and he was kind of like tough love, and maybe he read me really well, but like, he was tough love with me.
Like,
and I looked at her and I'm like, and she's like, what did he say? And he's like, I said to her, he said he's going to give me the help I need and everything's going to be okay, right? And then my mom's like, oh, okay, good. Thank you. And the doctor's like, what? The doctor's like, thank you. Anyway, I was like, look, doctor, of course I'm not going to translate, but I'm going to get the help, right?
Yeah.
Almost done with the story.
And how old are you now? 13, 14?
13 and a half, turning 14 soon,
okay.
yeah.
Yeah.
So now they take me to a psychiatrist's office, and that was like I saw the light moment. I just remember sitting exactly like that with a psychiatrist, and the psychiatrist was looking at me, and it was a woman, and it just felt cold. And, she's asking me questions. And I had this moment that I'm like, why am I going to talk about sitting in shit? Like, I'm sitting in shit. You want me to talk about sitting in shit? How about I just get myself out of the shit,
Yeah.
clean myself up, and then maybe, just maybe after I can reflect on like why I did this. But talking about why and talking about how it started, and like I just needed to get out. I
You
need to
wanted to
get
move
out of
forward.
it. Yeah.
Uh-huh.
And that was the moment that I realized, my God, I let a single human completely manipulate me into almost taking away the one thing you gave me, which is life.
Mhm.
Like, how am I going to let a human be bigger, a human's opinion of me be bigger than God's plan for me?
Yep.
So that was literally the moment that I'm looking at the psychiatrist, and I just had this, like, I literally think that that's when my faith started.
And that's a big realization for a 14-year-old or an almost 14-year-old.
Right?
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 Think about that.
No, God was on my side, girl.
Right?
Yeah,
Right?
100%. Because
Okay.
it was so clear. And then I remember standing up and I said, I have nothing but respect for you, but I actually know what to do. And the psychiatrist is like, you have a mental disorder. You don't know what to do. And I said,
Oh, I love you.
I said, you're not gonna watch me, but I'm gonna do this. I know exactly what to do, right? So I got
That
up.
is very strong for a 14-year-old to be
I
able to
know,
do that.
right? So I got up and I went back to the boarding school. I took my mom, and the first thing I did was eat a bunch of carbs, right?
Good,
Like I just
good for you.
I
What'd
got
you
my
eat?
little toast, which was a lot for me. I got my little toast and I got my banana. And I'm like, I know exactly what to do. I'm gonna slowly gain weight. I'm gonna slowly get healthy. I'm gonna get my period again because it had been a year since I
Yeah.
hadn't, right? And I just started, I think that was the first realization of exactly what you said. Number one, what people think about you or say about you is 100% a reflection of them.
Mhm.
Most of the time, right?
Most of the time.
You have to have your circle of people that you trust, that when they're telling you the truth, that you believe them.
Yes.
But I think it's that discernment of like coming to, who am I, right? Who am I going to let influence me? What's important to me? And it's so cliche, right? It's so cliche. Like now I'm talking to you, and it's so cliche to be like, no, you have to remember who you are, and you can't worry about what people say, blah 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 blah. But and I tend to move away so much from like, oh, it's about me, and put your mask first. I know there's those instances that you have to focus on you first, that you have 100%. But for me, I check my ego all the time, and I'm so much about service. I can't serve my family, I can't serve my friends if I'm not my best.
Yep.
I can't do
1,000%.
what I love if I'm not my best, right? And with dance is how I'm able to influence people, right? Which is so crazy. Like doctors do that, right?
Yeah.
Like with dance, with what I love, I'm able to maybe inspire someone. And I can't do that if I'm not my best. I can't do that if I'm not healthy. And I certainly can't do that if I'm not dead, right?
Yeah.
So it's cliche, and it's so cliche, like, don't worry about what people say, but we don't listen.
We don't.
You know what I mean? Like we
Yeah.
don't accept that is a truth, that like the fact that you allow someone, and that could be an ex-husband, that could be an ex-boyfriend, that
Could
could
be
be
anybody.
anybody, to have that much influence on you, that much control on you, right? And the red flags are fear. The red flags is someone making you feel like you're less than what you are, right? The red flag is insecurity. Um, feeling like you're replaceable. Like that's what dance does. Like, oh, you're easily replaced.
Replaceable. Yeah.
And my dad taught me, people are not replaceable, bodies are.
Yeah.
So someone can come in and be better at that job than you, but they're not you.
Yeah.
And my dad was like, came from nothing, was president of Johnson & Johnson in Brazil, right? So
Okay.
to hear that from my dad, like, remember this, like,
Yeah.
because you're going to hear that your entire life, no matter what industry you go into.
Yeah.
And I can't tell you the amount of jobs that, like, they use tough love on you as dancers. And they're like, just remember, you're lucky to be here. No, I'm not lucky to be here. I worked to be here. And so did you. And so if any type of threat, any type of like, that's a red flag for me. If you're trying to make me feel replaceable, that's a red flag. And unfortunately back then it was food, and I think the food was I was trying to fit this mold. I wanted to be skinny. I wanted to be, because now, well, too tall, I can't do anything. I can't cut my legs, right?
Yeah.
But weight I can lose, so I can have control of that. And it's
sorry, my Roomba's going on right
no.
now.
I'm like, God? I'm like,
God's like
but yeah, this amount of control,
So-
like, paying attention to the red flags.
Yeah.
Right? Like, what's
So-
triggering you?
So I guess my question would be, so you realize this at what, 14, 15, but then you're still in this world that
Right.
is very, how was it just easy breezy from there? Or did you have your moments where you thought that again? Or like, how did you still survive in this so competitive world where everything's focused on the way you look
Yeah.
and end up where you are today?
For me, my identity is not dependent on me.
Yeah.
My identity is not dependent on my jobs. You know, you started this interview saying like you have an amazing resume. That's just what I do. It's not who I am.
Yeah.
Right. My identity comes from God, and that is my constant.
Yeah.
He made me, right? Like he is my creator. And so that is my constant. And so you know, you audition notices, you know, like we don't want too pretty. We want pretty. We don't want too tall. We want tall. We want edgy. Who the fuck knows what edgy means, right?
Yeah.
We want sexy, not too sexy. So it's kind of like you're always like, you know, and you're always trying to dress up for the audition, like whatever you think it is. And it's so easy to get lost, right?
Yeah.
Just in the audition process alone. Because you just try to dress up and to put the makeup on, to put the hair in whatever you think they like. And after hours and hours of audition, you get rejected, you know, over and over again.
Yeah.
Right?
Over
like
and over.
you look at my resume, but the amount of auditions I went to that I actually got denied is way bigger than my resume.
Yeah. Yeah.
Way bigger.
Yeah.
Right? And so to put up with that rejection, like I think my anorexia actually kind of prepped me because again, going back to your point, now that I hold auditions as choreographers, right? Sometimes you know exactly what you're looking for. Sometimes you have no idea what you're looking for. And when you see the room, you're like, oh my God, that's going to work for the show. Oh my God, that's going to work for the show, right? But you're thinking the show.
Yeah.
I'm not thinking like, wow, that girl is great because she was born in blah, blah. Like, I have no idea who you are.
Yeah.
I have no idea. In fact, I don't even know the extent of your talent because I have hours with you, you know, in the room.
Yeah.
And auditions are long, but like when I hold auditions, I try to get people in and out in 1 hour, right?
Yeah.
That's 1 hour that I get to meet you. And so I've learned now, especially being on the other side of the table, that it's really not that personal. It's just like if it fits or it doesn't fit.
Yeah.
But for the dancer,
that's actually good for if you're a dancer listening to this to know that, right? Just because you quote unquote get rejected, it doesn't mean anything to do with you. It's maybe it didn't fit the show, or it didn't fit the show. And that's what we don't understand, because sometimes we go out, and even beyond dance, like I remember I used to go out for like auditions for like hosts and stuff like that, and I used to get so down on myself until I realized that like, hey, because once you're on the other side, you realize that it's not that you're not great, because even like when we pick someone on our radio show, it's just not what we need right now.
Right.
We needed something else right now, right?
In fact, I auditioned for Cher 3 times before I got it.
Cher?
Yeah.
Wow.
And like when I left the tour, when I finished my contract, she held me by the hand. She was like, anytime you want to come back, you're more than welcome to.
That's
right?
awesome. Yeah.
But it took me 3, like the 4th, this is years apart.
Yeah.
And that's one of my favorite jobs. Like I thought she was awesome to work for. But point is, like, you know, I think it comes down to, again, having discernment of who you are. And I think most of us don't know. I think most of us are so fucking distracted right now that you have no idea who you are and no idea what you have to offer for this world, to this world. And I think as soon as you do, like that, when it comes to like self-focus, self-help or whatever, that's the part that I think we need to spend time on. Like who you are, what do you have to give to this world? And are you living in that journey? And are the people around you supporting you to become this person?
Absolutely.
Right? That's number one. But and then, yeah, number 2, number 3, number 4, everything else is not personal. As personal as it feels, it's not personal.
Yeah.
Pay attention to your triggers.
Yeah.
You know, what's triggering you? What are the red flags?
And that's a great thing. Knowing your triggers. We talked about this on a different episode, like knowing that, and just not that you even have to, just understanding yourself so much that you know what's going to, so that maybe next time if you get upset or next time you like, you know where that came from, and that's enough for it to not take over your life.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Right.
Yeah. 100%.
I wanted to share with you a little bit about like what I went through, because you talked about it.
Yeah,
I've never like,
please.
you know, and I think with eating disorders things, there's such a wide realm of, you know, and to the extent of them. And like yours was obviously, you were told by a doctor you would die in 2 weeks if you didn't change your life at 13. That's insane, right? So for me, I feel like I remember I was telling one of the girls that works on the podcast, Haley, yesterday, that I remember the first time someone told me, or I thought I was quote unquote fat, right? And I was 10 years old. I was on a softball team, and one of the moms said, oh, give her the large. She's one of the bigger girls, right? And I look back now, that's the first time I remember. I think that's maybe the first time I realized like about even, as kids, you don't look at each other like that, right? Then you're like, oh, I guess I am one of the bigger girls, right? But then now when I look back, I was just average, just like anybody else, right? But from that moment, I always say that because you always have to go back to the first moment, I feel like, when you're healing, right? So I went back to, and then after that, it was just a cycle. Like I was so self-conscious of like everything. And I wouldn't say I had an eating disorder in high school, but I was very like your mind, and maybe you can help with this because it seems like you've done more like research and stuff like that. But I felt like my mind was always like the mind of, even when my friends, it's like, you have the mind of anorexic, right? Because I was constantly looking at the way I looked, constantly like everything, but I wasn't doing anything. I wasn't
Got it.
not eating. I wasn't like overeat. I was just like, but
You're
my
obsessed
mind
by it, but you weren't acting on it.
Exactly. And my friend would always say that, right? And this is why it's important, why we shouldn't start those mind things, because so then I had 2 brothers murdered within 5 months from each other, right?
Oh my God.
And after that, that's a whole different podcast, but after that, I went home with my parents and I lived there and I literally did nothing and that's when my eating disorder, like it felt like it was maybe like on the surface and then it just erupted and one of a therapist told me, like, when your life is out of control, you start to control the things that you can. For me, it was my weight at the time, the food, right? So what I did is I would wake up every morning and I would run like 5 or 6 miles. I was running. And then I would just sleep all day kind of because I was so depressed. If I ate, I would just throw it up immediately. I was eating at one point, and I was so eating unhealthy. I remember I was eating like a 6-piece of chicken nuggets and a Red Bull. That's it, like the whole day. And then I would throw that up, right? And then I was weighing myself, and I think about it now, and I don't even have scales in my house, but there's one in the bathroom that me and my boyfriend have got over, but he keeps it on the other side of the house because he's, whatever. But I would weigh myself at least 30 times a day. 30 times a day, right? And I thought that was normal to see if it changed a pound. Which, by the way, it does change all the day. So don't weigh yourself 30 pounds of a day.
Absolutely
but
not.
Imagine how much that fucks with your head, right?
Yeah,
and so I was just like, whatever. And I didn't realize until later, because I didn't go to therapy for the moment, that I was controlling, because my life was so out of control. I had 2 brothers that had just got murdered. I wasn't working. I was at home. I was depressed. All of these things that was the only thing I could control. And I got super skinny. And I remember when my friends from high school who would know me my whole life, I remember to this moment, he comes up, he's all, Geena, you look fucking sick. What is wrong with you?
Thank God he said that.
Yeah.
I thought you were going to say you look amazing. I would have been like.
No, exactly. But he said, you look sick. Like there's something wrong with you, right? And I remember that. So then I was like, okay, and I ended up going back to work, and I really threw myself into work. And the reason why I'm talking about this is a lot of emotional stuff can be our triggers for the eating and, all these things, right? And so I start going to work, and I feel like I'm better, but I'm still throwing up every meal, right? And I'm still not. I was working at the radio station with Crystal. Yeah. None of them knew. No one knows. You know what I mean? And I was like, literally, it just became such a habit where I would just throw up every meal right after. So I would eat, and I wasn't eating healthy either. And that's a whole nother thing, right? I would just eat a 6-piece chicken nuggets and Red Bull. That's what I remember. Wow. And then I would like throw it up. So I can imagine what my insides look like, right? And then it went on for like years. I will say, like, I was probably bulimic for like about 10 years probably, right? And it was like, it would be less maybe, it would be more, it would be come back. And then I remember I was like, I hadn't thrown up anything for like a year. But let me tell you, the mind never stopped though.
I know.
The mind never stopped. I was able to control not throwing up, but the mind just like, the mind is always telling you you're fat to this day. Like it's still like, it's like something I work on, like, no, I'm not fat. And that's why I was like telling them, I love this generation of women. They're so like, they don't care. They just wear whatever, like amazing. But I didn't grow up. I think I'm a little older than you, but I didn't grow up in that generation. You know what I mean? And so it's hard for me to get out of the mind frame. So then 10 years, like not 10 years, like a few years. And then I was like, because I was very aware that I shouldn't be doing this, right? But then it would just do it. But then I went through a breakup. So it was very tied to my emotions, because like when I was with this guy, I always say he was the first person who made me laugh after my brothers died. And I am convinced that that's why he came into my life. People come into your life for a season.
Sometimes they're your angel. Reason.
Yeah. Yes. And I know like maybe we weren't supposed to be together, but he made me laugh again. And I was happy. And guess what? I didn't throw up. I'm not saying never, but it wasn't as like much, right? When we broke up. spiral, right? Like right back to it, right? Just when I thought it was over. And I'm already here in San Diego hosting a morning show, and I'm like, just have this secret where like, and then I would just go running every day again, back running, which I don't think running is bad, but at the time I think it was just like part of I want to get back to running, but it was just part of the thing. And then I was like throwing up. And then I don't even remember when I finally stopped, but it was probably when I was like close to 30. And I was just like, I just had a, like, we have to stop this, right? Like, this is not good. But fast forward, it has been still a journey. Like, I still wake up feeling fat sometimes and still looking. And I'm like, here I am, this role model for people. Like, you know what I mean? Like I have, if people look like, you have everything. Like, why are you so worried about?
But I think the best role models are broken.
Yeah,
honestly.
Yeah.
It's not the people that have it together, because nobody has it together, right?
Yeah.
You said so many things that
okay, so
that,
chime in.
oh my God. You said so many things that are
Yeah.
so good.
Yeah.
Number one, remind me to talk about mindset.
Okay.
But number one, it did start earlier for me too. I was chubby too growing up, and my mom didn't have boys in the dance studio, so I was always a boy on stage. Not always, but a lot of the time, because I was thicker.
See, it starts from somewhere,
Totally,
right? And then it just ignites.
Totally.
Right? Yeah.
And I always thought like, oh, I'm like the joke. Not much is expected from me. I was smart. I was the smart one, the smart daughter. So I wanted to be a businesswoman like my dad, but definitely nobody expected me to be a dancer, right? So it's kind of like when that woman said, you're too tall, now you're too fat, it was like the big like fuck you moment for everyone. Like, now I'm going to prove it to you guys that I can do this, right?
Yeah.
So that's really, really interesting. And again, like the proving to someone else. Meanwhile, the woman is dead.
Now?
Yeah.
Yeah.
She died of cancer.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like, and I don't even know if she thought of me.
Yeah. No,
and here I am talking about her.
I know, right?
And then I mean, so that to me, like my pride comes in the way, and I'm like, why do I let someone take? And not that it stopped there. She wasn't the last one. Like I've been in an abusive marriage, like she wasn't the last one. But it's interesting for you again. Like that's what I'm saying. Spending time with yourself. Like, are you repeating patterns?
Yeah.
And so it takes me to the mindset. I started a dance company for 9 to 5 women, right? And there's a reason why I'm telling you this. And it's in San Diego and in LA. And it's an 8-week training.
Yeah. Tell us what it is.
Yeah, no, so that's what I created a space for them to train with me and my business partner, who's also another professional dancer. And we want to give them really, really good training. These are women that are passionate about dancing, but they have careers, or they're stay-at-home moms. They're not trying to become professional dancers. They just love to dance. And that dream of like becoming a dancer is long dead. So we're here to resurrect that, right?
Okay.
So we train them and we create performing opportunities for them, right? So we're getting ready for our big cabaret show right now, which the girls get to sing, act, dance, like whatever it is that they want to do, we develop them in. But my point of saying that is that it's an 8-week training. And for 8 weeks, I humbly speaking, I'm a very good teacher. And I know I tell them, dance-wise, I can take you there. If you give me your time, if you give me your dedication, I can improve your dancing, no problem, in 8 weeks. Coming week 8, there's nothing else I can do for your dancing. This is it. Our performance is around the corner. Your dancing is not going to improve anymore, right? The training is over. But mindset can change in 1 second.
Mm-hmm.
So if you put in all this training, if you put in all the work, all the hours, all the sweat, all the tears, you can still go on stage and flunk it.
Mm-hmm.
You can still go on stage and have a horrible experience because of that mindset. Now, with me sitting in front of that psychiatrist, it was the moment that I realized every single day, if not every single hour, if not every single minute, I gotta make the choice of getting better.
Yeah.
So the change of behavior takes a while, right? Like anybody that studies the brain will tell you how it takes a while for the patterns to change and like the branches of the brain to like disconnect and connect in a new way. I get that. That takes a while. It depends on the person. But the choice is now.
So what you're saying is like, say someone who may be listening to this, and even like me, who I feel like I've even like looked into like I don't have an eating disorder. I don't feel like I've even been close to throwing up, but I do feel like I need to change like my mind, like the way I look in the mirror. Like one of my friends used to say, you have like body dysmorphia. Like what you're seeing is not what we see, right?
Yeah.
And like, so what is something, okay, so we're listening to this and we decide, I want to change. what do I do after that? Like, how do you change that mind frame that where you're thinking about what you look like 30 times a day? Maybe I'm
Right.
not weighing myself, but I'm sure I'm looking at myself. If I'm
Right.
being honest, not overly, like I do feel like I've gotten better. And this is coming from someone, me, who has all the resources, has all the friends, has all the everything you could want to get better. And I'm not saying I'm 100% there at all, right?
Mm-hmm.
So what is someone that's listening at home, just an average person, like, I want to change, but what do I do from here?
Comparison is the thief of joy.
Mm-hmm.
Comparison will always steal your joy.
Yeah.
I think number one, I think it goes way back, but this is something that women have to make a choice to. Little girls, if you watch parents, love parents, I don't judge because I'm not a parent, but if you watch a parent with a little girl, it's like, hey, don't be on the floor, you're gonna get your dress dirty,
Mm-hmm.
right? Hey, don't climb that, you're gonna get hurt. Boys, they're like on the ceiling, they're like, you good? Like the parents are like,
you're dirty, that means you're
just
boy.
don't kill yourself, right?
Mm-hmm.
And boys are encouraged to take risks and explore who they are. And girls from a very young age, like we're taught, like, let's be clean, let's be pretty, like watch your hair, blah, right? And I'm not saying I don't discourage. I mean, obviously I care about the way I look, right? I think that's good. I think, but it's like it's recognizing like, you said something else too. It's not the what you do is why you do it, like the running, right? It's not what you do, it's why you do it. Like, why are you running those 5 miles?
Why? Yes.
Are you just trying to be healthy? Are you trying to prepare for a marathon? Like, do you just enjoy running? Is that your therapy?
Yeah.
Or is it because it's a punishment?
Yes.
Right? So is getting ready, is like me getting myself ready, like hair, makeup, is it because it's for someone else? Or is it because it just makes me feel good? Like it makes me feel like I'm like making my bed.
Yeah.
I'm not making my bed for anyone else. I just love making my bed. I love looking at my bed and being like, cool.
Yeah.
Task 1 done. Let me go conquer the day, you know?
So it's looking at why you do things.
Why you're doing things.
Okay. Do any of like the, like your stuff initially happened, you were 14, you had that light bulb moment, right? And I think that whether or not you, like, I think we should be thankful to that woman because she was your
100%.
teacher and now you're speaking about this and you're helping so many other people. Now, it's hard to say that we're just saying thankful, but there's a reason why people come into your lives, right?
You are so right.
Right?
You are so right. And I am grateful for her because she toughened me up and she taught me a lesson. You said like you're 14, you're thinking that. If it wasn't for her, I wouldn't be thinking like that. And not to say that I didn't make mistakes after that.
Yeah.
But you recognize, you're like, okay, this is where it's coming from, right? And let me not repeat it again. And so like, you are your best coach. Like I can look back and like, okay, I recognize where that came from. Obviously, I didn't deal with that. That's why I chose an abusive relationship. And that's the other thing too. It's like, you only put up with, this is a tangent, but you only put up with as much abuse as you inflict on yourself, right? So that's the stuff, again, like spending time with you, like check in. Who are you? Like, what do you want to be in this world? Like, how are you going to serve? The other thing too that you're saying, like, what helps? Change is the only constant.
Yeah.
So like weighing yourself 30 days, the numbers are going to change, right? Because you are your skinniest, you are your thinnest, you are your lightest when you wake up because you haven't eaten for hours, right? Yeah. And so as soon as you like take that first sip of water, I mean, you should in fact, like you should put a pound of water in your, I'm just exaggerating, but whatever, of water in your system because you're completely dehydrated. But, change is the only constant. And I think, our bodies, I think if we start also looking at our bodies as something that's, oh my God, like think about like what it takes for you to stay alive.
Yeah.
And so
glad you brought that up.
Yeah. I started, I actually studied nutrition and I'm shocked, another tangent, that doctors don't have to study nutrition to become doctors.
1,000%. We're on the same page of that.
Oh my God. Like crazy. I was shocked. So anyway, so I started, I studied nutrition and I got certified. For me. Yeah. I wanted to understand, like, I don't want to look at food as fuel.
Yes.
We're not cars, So I didn't want to look at food as fuel anymore or as a reward or as a punishment or something good or something bad. I wanted to understand what is food and my relationship as a human to it, right? How does it affect me? Like as soon as I eat, literally what happens to my insides? And I think having an understanding of that really helped me develop a much healthier relationship to food and to myself. Yes. Because food is self-care, actually.
Yeah, no, it is.
And food is information. If you grow up, I'm Brazilian and have Italian and Portuguese in me, and America too, you use food to celebrate. You never say, hey, you want to get together and just sit? Like, no, let's go for lunch. Let's go for dinner. Let's
Yeah.
grab a coffee. You're
Yeah.
always consuming something,
Yeah.
right? So it's food ends up being information too. It's social. It's part of your culture, you know? So it's not just something that you sit down and like you use food to nourish yourself and to literally keep you alive. It's something that we're thoughtlessly doing.
Yeah.
Thoughtlessly like participating in, right?
Yeah.
So I started also, you know, as much as I can to remember to have like respect and reverence too. It sounds
food.
weird. I'm not hippie, I promise, but like reverence for food, like there's
I
a
am.
respect
No,
instead of just
yeah.
like thoughtlessly.
So when we
with
pray
anything.
before we put, when I talk about my nephew and his son, and I believe everyone can believe what they want, but like the, you know, whatever they, but when we pray to God. We say, thank you for this food. I ask that it nourishes our body. And I ask that it keeps whatever's in highest and best for us, and that it releases with ease and grace what is not meant for
I
us.
love that.
You know what I mean? And what
I
that's saying
love
is that
that.
I believe that our body will keep what's meant for us, and like we say, we'll poop it out. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And we that's why we say with ease and grace, TMI. But you know what I mean? Like,
No, yeah.
like, you know what I mean? And I've
I love
explained that
that.
to him. So that's one way I think. And another thing that you mentioned is that like the food you put in your body. And before I mean, growing in college, I did every kind of diet. You know what I mean?
Oh my God,
Everything
girl.
I've tried, every kind of diet,
Me
right?
and you both.
And I
yeah.
hate the word diet. And
Mhm.
so I started looking at food, and I am a hippie. So, so I started I started, and I'll tell my nephew this: is that it's not what you take out of your diet; it's what you put into your body.
Yeah.
Like really analyze, like think about what you've put in, say for breakfast. Did it have nutritional value?
Yeah.
Did it have, what was it? Because sometimes you'll eat a whole meal and none of that was good, right? But you can have a whole meal and everything was nutritional for your body. Now, of course, you can overdo everything, but that's why I like, what did you put in your body today versus what you took out? Because on diets, you're taking out, and you could be skinny, but you're not putting it. Your body inside is looking horrible because you didn't put in the right vegetables and and we don't, you know, as Americans, we don't eat all the stuff we're supposed to be eating. But once you start looking at that, it made me realize, okay, man, I haven't ate enough veggies today. I need to like make sure that's in my dinner. You know what I mean? So instead of what you take, what you're thinking about, why am I losing it? What you're putting into your body versus what you're taking out.
And I mean, someone listening, maybe someone that's going through this, like just hearing this conversation about food gives them anxiety, right?
Yeah.
But if there's one thing, I mean, hopefully a lot of things you can take away from this conversation, but food is not the problem. Food is not if it's not the problem for someone else, then it's not the problem. It doesn't have to be the problem for you.
Yeah.
Right. So if you think in the grand scheme of things, and you live someone living healthy and they're thriving in their life, I think when you have a disease like anorexia or bulimia, you're just trying to. There's no sense of thriving. You're surviving.
Yes.
And if that's all you want for your life, cool.
You don't. No one wants that if they're being honest.
You know
right?
what I mean?
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Again, it's having like a heart to heart with yourself and like, what is the problem? You know, like what is causing you to look at food or exercise or all of these things that we use to punish ourselves or to support this disease, you know, like, are they really the problem? Because they're just tools.
Yeah.
Like the tools are not the problem.
Yeah.
Right?
And I liked how you said, looking at things differently. So like if I was running 5 miles a day just to be skinny, that's not the right intention, right? But if I'm running 5 miles a day because it genuinely
gives you joy, like you love it.
And then that's right. And it's this, you're doing the same thing, but you're doing it two different intentions. The intention behind everything is so important. Even the food you put into your body, the intention. That's why I believe when you eat, we always say that we have this big kitchen table. You can see it right here. We sit together, we turn off our phones, and we eat like together, because it's just, there's something about like valuing the food you're putting into your body instead of eating it on a rush in your car. You're not
totally.
You're not letting it serve your body.
Yeah,
And
sit down and eat for 20
hippie as
minutes.
that sounds, I believe in that. And so of course we're not perfect, but we try to ask we try to have dinners at least together on the table where we're like praying and eating and just doing all the things, because that's when the food can do the most for your body.
Yeah.
That's what I think. Another thing I think I started doing is just, it's okay to do the little things. Like when you're recovering, I would say recovering bulimic or recovering anorexic. That's the way I look at it. And my mind is still not
Here's
there.
the thing. You will always be recovering.
Yes.
It never ends.
Right.
Like, so you're saying you still struggle with it? Of
Yeah.
course I do too. Now, I'm not starving myself anymore. I see my body for what it is. Sometimes there's a little bit of body dysmorphia in there. But that's the thing. That's the work that you have. So once you're in it, that's the good and bad news, right? The change is always constant, but it's something that you're always going to have to deal with it.
Yeah.
You made a choice once upon a time to do this to yourself, and there's consequences to that. Right.
Yeah.
And I don't want to be a Debbie Downer, because that's not the good news is that there's every day is an opportunity for you to work on it, for you to and it sounds so cliche, to discover something new about yourself, or like, are you strong enough today to come out of it? And the thing is that, again, like, if you picture back then, that's what I was thinking. Like, I'm sitting in front of this psychiatrist, and as she's talking, I don't even know. If you ask me what question she asked me, I have no idea, because I was like on La La Land, right?
Yeah.
But I remember looking at her and I'm thinking, like, really, that's the life I want? Like, just to be skinny?
Like
how petty? Like,
right? Yeah.
like that's all like 7 billion people in the world, and that's what I want?
Yeah. If you really think about it, it's like, one of my friends said this to me the other day, and she said, "Oh my God," because I forgot what, but she's like, "Oh my God, this is the first time I feel like she's not on a diet, but she feels like it because she's like changing the way she's eating. The first time I've ever felt like like I've had to be on a diet my entire life." I was like, what must that feel like? Because I feel opposite. I feel like I've been on a diet my entire life. Like, how does it feel to be her? And then I thought about it. I was like, that sounds fucking fabulous to never feel like you've been on a diet your entire life, right?
Right.
And she has never. She has never. Even then, she was just joking. I don't really feel like she thinks she's on a diet now. But I couldn't fathom how that even feels. And then I thought about how many years of my life have I been wasting worrying about this thing where I could be like using those years just enjoying life.
And it's the worry for me. Like, I'm not again. So I have retrained my brain. I've redefined the word diet, right? Diet to me is what you eat. Like, it's not what we thought, like, oh, just eat potatoes. I did that potato hack. I wish I hadn't said that, because I don't want anyone to look it up. Like, it's awful. But any kind of hack, any kind of like weight loss hack that you do, but it's about choices. I'm all about making good choices. I believe we as humans, we're one as a whole. And let me use this as an example. Like, you have your job, you have your personal life, you have your social life, right? And we tend to think of that as like categories, like you put them in folders. However, you're a whole person, and everything affects everything, right? So I think if you're talking about control, right? Because humans, we have to feel like we have control of something, because ultimately we don't have control of anything, right?
Yeah.
But making the decisions, the small decisions. So like, how do I choose? Literally, are my sheets clean? That's a choice I can make. Clothes I'm going to wear. Am I going to brush my teeth? Like, all the little choices that you think are insignificant, you're making every big thing has a small beginning. Every big thing has a small beginning, right? So I am a believer that every choice matters. Doesn't matter how big or small it is.
Yeah.
So my point is, the bed you sleep on matters. How you wake up, how you go to sleep, like your routine matters. The type of water you drink matters. How much time you spend on your phone matters. Everything matters. Because everything influences you.
Yeah.
So if you're trying to address your food, your food issues, your weight loss issues, your weight gain issues, your just any type of mental disorder when it comes to that, it's not just about the food.
No, it's everything.
It's everything.
I agree with you.
You know, so that's why I love that you said, let's take it back. Like, when do you think it really started?
Yeah.
And maybe it was me feeling like, okay, I'm always the boy because I'm the bigger girl and blah, blah.
Yeah.
Maybe it was even before that. Who knows, right? But at least that's my earliest memory. But it goes to show everything matters.
Everything matters. And I think part of the healing is recognizing it. And because people are like, okay, well, once you recognize it, it kind of switches your thought pattern, because you realize, hey, this is not me. This is the 10-year-old who was hurt because a mom said a large was big. Just by the way, a large is not big. Like, you know what I mean? Like, but like back then I thought it was like, oh my God, you know? Like, I wanted to just say a few things that have helped me get like you can also, like, on your healing process, I'm not to where I want to be, but you can also do certain things. So for example, I talked about the scale. We do have one in our guest bedroom, that bathroom. That's the only one. And me and my boy, because my boyfriend doesn't have an eating disorder. He's really into
but
health.
the scale's not the problem.
Yeah, the scale's not the problem. But for me, right? So I told him, please, it's a trigger. And I know that. So I said, I don't want it in my bathroom. And so he agreed. And so he puts it over there in that bathroom so that he can go, so I don't have to see, because that's something. And I hope I could get to the point one day where it's like, it's not a trigger, right? Another thing, when I go to the doctor, you know, when they weigh you, right? Did you know that you don't have to be weighed? Like, I didn't realize that you don't have to be weighed. You just tell them, I don't want to be weighed. Really? Because it was like really anxious, and it would make me depressed, because it's never going to be what you want.
Oh my God. I used to take my shoes off, my jacket.
But now I just tell them, I don't want to be weighed. And they say, okay. And you skip that part.
Yeah.
So those are little things. And maybe I'll get to a point where it doesn't matter. I hope I get to the point. But right now, those are little things that I have been able to do that help me mentally.
That's awesome.
Move forward with, you know, to have my friends' mind frame of like how she just lived. She's never ever, and I thank God that she never had to go through all that.
Listen, you start with where you're at, right? And use what you have. So like if making those small changes is what helps you right now thrive, then that's what it is. And if the ultimate goal is for nothing to have a hold of you, then I'm sure you'll start making other smaller choices, right? To, like, for instance, for me, it was an airplane. When I was going through that situation, I needed the belt to be as tight as possible, because I wanted to see how skinny I was on the seat, right?
So crazy, right?
And I started doing like the opposite. It was like a choice. I was like, no, let me go as loose as possible. As long as I don't go flying when in the turbulence, you know, let me just go. But it's like those little choices that you can, the little thing, which is insignificant to someone that looking at you like you're crazy. Like, really, you got to do that?
Yeah. But the mind of a when you have an eating disorder, that's how we think. Yeah. Like I never did that, but I totally understand that. Right. Because I've done things similar.
You do things that make no sense.
They make no sense.
You got to start with where you are. You know, again, use what you have, and what you can do today is what you should do. Yeah. You know, and again, comparison is the thief of joy. So like, don't compare your journey to someone else's. Like, just because I got out of it, you know, doesn't mean that you're any worse, or whoever's listening to this, right? That's like, oh, I'm never going to get out of it. Like, everyone's journey is so different. And hopefully, like, out of this conversation, like, you can take your golden nuggets and like, okay, I can use that. You know, maybe you're someone that needs reminders, you know, like the little post-it notes in your mirror. Maybe you're someone that needs someone to check in on you, you know, and find that good friend. I thank God your friend didn't say, because I thought you were going to say like, oh, Geena, you look amazing. I'm also really careful too now. And this may be extreme, but this is my journey right now. I'm really careful with when I see women, after I haven't seen in a long time, I'm really careful with saying like, oh my God, you look amazing. That's the very first thing that comes out of my mouth. Because what two guys see each other like, whoa, bro, you look so handsome. Like, you know, like men don't do that. That is true. Right? Like we are so predisposed and like trained to notice the physique first. Yeah. Right? Yeah. And so I'm trying to
be aware of that.
And
I think I even did that to you today, maybe.
But that's because we're used to it. Yeah. You know, we're used to it. And I just realized, I actually saw this. I can't recall the actress's name, but she said that. And, you know, and a friend of mine was like, well, that's a little too extreme, because like some women like hearing that they're beautiful. I'm like, no, I'll get to it. But maybe that's not the first thing that needs to come out of my mouth. Yeah. So, you know what I mean? That's a good thing, that actionable item that we can do. Like, hey, so what do you say instead? Like, what's an example? How are you doing? Actually, listen. Right? Yeah, that's true. Like, how are you doing? How's everything? Yeah. You know? Yeah. Are you happy? Yeah. And people are like, oh, I'm not expecting all that, right? Yeah, that's good. Well, Ferly, thank you. I wanted to quickly, though, of course, talk about everything else you're doing. You mentioned the dance studio. That's here in San Diego and LA. We don't own our brick and mortar. We just rent, but our location is in Rancho Bernardo here in San Diego, and then in Santa Monica in LA. But yeah, I started my dance company, again, totally dedicated to 9-to-5 women and stay-at-home moms. And the idea is that there's no expiration date to your dreams. It looks so much fun on the videos. But do you have to know how to dance to go? Because I was like, I would like to, but I don't know how to do it. Like, I feel like you have to know how to dance? Yeah. No, not at all. Is it even for beginners? It's always for beginners. It's actually mostly for beginners. Okay. So because that's the premise. Like, I want, if you used to love to dance and like used to be, maybe like you took one dance class, and it's really intimidating to be in an adult dance class nowadays, especially in Los Angeles, right? So we wanted to create this space for people to like get good training. I'm not going to mention like, there's some like cute dance programs that just like, you're just going side to side, but like,
No, hers are legit.
yeah,
Go on her
no,
Instagram and
thank
look.
you. Like dance, for me, it changed me.
Yeah.
It brought me out of my shell. It doesn't make me a different person. It literally makes me feel my entire being. Like I feel my most powerful. I mean, I feel my most purposeful, when I'm dancing, when I'm serving through this physical language, right? And so I just wanted to create the space for women to get that good training and to have the opportunity to perform, not just like, oh, let's perform at the park, like actually like stage, lights, a legit audience, like legit people performing with you, for you to feel like what it's like and you don't have to wonder anymore. So I'm not taking jobs away from my fellow dancers because I'm creating the jobs, you know? So I reach out to usually like newer artists who are just starting out, and I reach out to them and I say, hey, I just saw you came out with a new song. Do you have any interest in doing a music video? I have 30 dancers. We can put all of them in your video, And so most artists are down for the cause. Like, absolutely. Like, that sounds great. So
that's cool.
That's how we're able to,
So where can people find that?
It's called Team3xt.com.
Team3xt.com. And then on Instagram, it is
Team3xt. That's right.
Yeah. And then hers is just Ferly Prado.
That's right.
FerlyPrado. And yes, she has a blue check mark. Thank you, Ferly, so much for coming on. I know you drove down for LA, so I appreciate you.
No, thank you for talking about this. This is important.